But let's bring in our next panelists, Eric, Tim, Chris. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Chris, what is up with your video? I
don't know,
down
man.
here. No, just
it's crazy.
click and stop it and restart it. I think that's what happened here.
All right.
Turn it off and turn it back on again. IT crowd. No.
Not here.
So I guess I'm just gonna have you here, Chris. If we don't get to see, we don't get to see
There
you.
we go.
Yeah, we'll just have a picture of you. But thank you guys so much for being a part of this panel and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dick, for having us. Was doing a lot better until the Freddie Peralta thing a few minutes ago. I'm a big Freddie Peralta guy, but we'll get into some prospects here with two very knowledgeable prospect minds I've had the fortune of meeting and learning from over the years. Tim, how's it going, man? The beard's looking very healthy.
Well, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm working on it. I decided I was going to keep it until Pedro Leon is starting in center field in Houston, so it's got potential to get a little bit bushier yet.
Yes, yeah, got to get a little bit longer from the sounds of it with the recent injury news. But Chris, how you doing? We can't see your beautiful face, but how are you, sir?
Well, this picture is from the summertime, so when I was at Fenway for the first time. So
yeah.
I'm doing great. It's good to be here with you and Tim. Looking forward to this. I wish you all saw my face. I actually dressed up for this, so it's kind of, I was actually, I know it's a Friday night, but I was already in my pajamas. So like I had to go and put a shirt on that was respectful. And now nobody sees it, so it's totally lost.
Well, okay, Chris, if you refresh the page, maybe it'll work. Okay.
All right, let's try.
All right, come and do that. Get out of here. Okay. I'll just be Chris, all nice and sitting here, being like, yes.
Well, speaking of looking sharp, Mr. Pollock, you looking sharp yourself over there. I like the vest.
I'm cold. I am honestly cold, so I put on this vest. My radiator doesn't work.
You looking sharp, man.
Where are you, Nick?
See? Oh, there we go.
There we are.
Oh my God. We did it. I'm cold. I don't want to turn on my radiator. It gets too ridiculous. So, all right, I'm out of here. Go.
And there he goes. All right, prospects here. It's gonna be a fun hour. Thanks to Nick and everybody over at PitchCon or Pitcher List for putting on PitchCon once again for a great cause. Happy to be back again. Let's start with, we'll talk a lot of players here, but let's start with a little bit of general just thoughts around prospects for redraft in general. Tim, I'll throw it over to you first here. You know, when you're in your redrafts, like what is your general thought process when approaching prospects in your drafts?
Well, right off the bat, I like to hoard all the NPB KBO guys, but that's too obvious. I think one of the things that we have to look at and be very careful in how we assess it is that there are a lot of prospects out there, top 10, top 50, top 100. But when it comes to redraft leagues, the criteria shifts a little bit because what's important is playing time. And all of a sudden, players that aren't per se in your top 100 prospects, okay, from a dynasty perspective, all of a sudden these guys hold value. If you can find full-time at-bats, quality full-time innings pitched from a middle-tier type prospect, all of a sudden that takes on value in redraft leagues. So I'm always looking for playing time opportunities. That's where I head in redraft leagues, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. That's half the battle is getting the at bats, getting those innings pitched. Chris, how about you?
Well, apparently I disappeared again. I got a crash note this time, so it's on my end. It's not on the website's end. So apologies to everybody who wanted to see my smiling face today. My strategy is kind of like Tim's, where I'm more invested in foreign-born players to try to grab, those guys from other major leagues, essentially. I very rarely will draft any rookies in my top 250. And that's kind of crazy with I'm supposed to be a prospect guy. I'm a scouty guy. So, but I just have never had the luck of picking the right guys. So about 2 years ago, I decided to throw out that old strategy. And, if a guy makes sense, usually I'm more inclined to pick relievers that are rookies that are in save plus hold. I play in a lot of save plus hold leagues. And that those guys tend to be better bets, and I don't really feel like I'm losing much if I have to, get a different waiver claim on some guy. But really, I kind of just avoid it. If I do pick anybody, it's usually a guy with position flexibility that I could use off the bench.
Yeah, no, that's kind of similar to how I've been approaching it. I used to be, going after all that shiny new toy, the upside, but after it burns you more than once, more than twice, more than three times, you alter your approach a little bit. And I'm not like 100%, out on taking prospects in redraft because I think that'd be boring for this panel. But I do, it has to be at the right price. So if a guy falls to a point where I feel comfortable taking, I still will. But yeah, I like that maybe a little bit upside later in the draft, but early on in the draft is kind of hard to go with that upside. But hey, the two guys we're going to start with here are maybe two guys that you could feel a little bit better about taking high in your drafts, the talent levels of these two guys. And of course, talking about Corbin Carroll from the Arizona Diamondbacks and Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles. Chris, if you were to take one of these two guys, Carroll's going around, pick 70, 75 in that general range, Henderson about 15, 20 picks later. Do you have a preference here between the two this year?
We actually had this as a debate question when we released our top 100 at Baseball HQ this year. And I was one of the few guys or a few guys and girls that took Corbin Carroll. And my belief there is stolen bases are so scarce. And again, like we're tailoring our approach at HQ for, the most general leagues usually. And I really do feel like he has the best chance at producing those counting stats this year. One of the arguments that got put out there was that, yes, Henderson does have the speed and stuff. I just don't see him stealing as many bases. And I feel like I can find home runs elsewhere. And I feel like, if Carroll continues getting lift on the ball like we've seen in the minor leagues, there's not going to be much difference there. So I took the slight edge of stolen bases with Carroll compared to Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I tweeted about it earlier today. A lot of the projection systems have Carroll, around 18, 19, 20 steals. I think he's going to go ahead, much higher than that. I was looking up. Arizona was 6th in stolen bases last year as a team. And Carroll had the number 1 sprint speed in baseball last year. Obviously, he's a very, very fast guy, can get on base. And like you mentioned, that power ticked up, and that was what made him go from, a top 20-ish prospect to a guy that was number 1 on a lot of fantasy-centric lists. So, yeah, I like both, and I think a lot of people will kind of look towards Gunnar just because of the third base eligibility and how that position does fall off pretty quickly. But, hey, outfield kind of does too. It's the middle round of outfielders is a little treacherous this year, at least than it was in years past. So, yeah, I'm there with you. I like both. And I don't think the price on either is too crazy, to be honest with you. But, yeah, give me Carroll. I think there's a legit chance he could kind of have like a Michael Harris type of year from last year. But, Mr. McLeod, what are your thoughts on these two?
Well, I pretty much echo your thoughts, except for one small thing. I'm right in the middle of a redraft league right now, slow draft. We started standard categories. We started it on Monday. Henderson went at 3.6. Carroll went at 3.13.
Oh, okay.
Both solid groups. So, I think their draft slots are going to be all over the place. Yeah. But I do like the fact that I think Carroll's got 30 stolen base potential, especially in Arizona. Look at what McCarthy did last year. There isn't going to be no stop signs up in Arizona this year. They're going to run like wild. And personally, I like Carroll a bit better than Gunnar this year because of that stolen base potential.
Yeah, I think there's at least an outside chance that Carroll could lead the major leagues in steals this year. I wouldn't necessarily bet money on it, but I think there's a chance in that. I love both these guys a lot. Mm-hmm. Let's get over to Tim's bread and butter here. The two big names coming over from Asia this year, obviously, are a pitcher and an outfielder here. Your boy, Kodai Senga. Let's start with him first, Tim. How excited should people be about Kodai Senga for fantasy purposes?
Well, I know personally I am off the charts excited because based on what happened in Arizona, I don't have to pay anybody $20 to mention his name. So an Arizona joke, but I would slip it your way, Rick. Yeah, Senga he's an elite level pitcher that you can get as a number 4 starter. Okay, the fastball, he works 95, 96. He can bring it to triple digits. The forkball's off the charts good. Strikeout per inning. You start looking at his career numbers. He's a really, really solid pitcher. And right now, there's an opportunity because I know the draft that I'm doing right now, we're into the 10th round, and he's still sitting there. And I'm going to push it another couple of rounds, but I like Senga a lot. I think he's going to be a very, very solid number 3, potentially number 2 starter. And again, the price right now is right, Eric.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought it'd be a bit higher than it has been, so it was a pleasant surprise to see the price tag where it was. And how about going to my Boston Red Sox here, Masataka Yoshida? Obviously, on base skills are off the charts. There's some questions about where the power is. He showed decent power over in Japan, but where's the power? How does that translate over here? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he can be more than an Alex Verdugo type and hit for some power here in the States?
Yeah, I think he can hit for a bit more power. Now he's not going to be no Alberto Mondesi for you, Eric. But
had to bring that up, didn't you?
Oh yeah, hey, got to get your shots in when you can. No, the guy's a hitting machine. Okay, I think you're looking at mid-teens power, very, very good batting average OBP, and they've got him penciled in to hit at the top of the lineup. So I don't see any reason why you couldn't be looking at 85 plus runs scored. I think he's going to bring a little bit more to the table than Alex Verdugo, who personally for me has been very, very disappointing. I was expecting a lot more out of Alex Verdugo than we've seen thus far. So, he's playing in left field. The arm isn't great, but left field in Fenway is a little bit of a different game, and I think you'll be able to handle it defensively. So, again, if you're looking at a number 4 type outfielder, and right now that's about where he's being slotted in, I think it's a good investment.
Hey, if Manny can play left field at Fenway, anybody can. That's my motto. Yeah, I like Yoshida a decent amount in terms of the draft price. I'm surprised he's not going higher. I think he's roughly 50-ish spots, give or take, behind Senga in most drafts. And boy, what he can bring to the table, good average, good OBP, good amount of runs scored. I think that's a pretty nice little player to have as like your outfield 4, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
Chris,
bump him up in OBP leagues.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
and I'm like, especially with Senga 200, I think with the NFBC right now, that's a very low spot for a guy that, as Tim said, SP3, SP4, slotting in that Mets rotation. The amount of production he's likely to have is definitely a top 100 type redraft player. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe people have gotten scared off of some of these Japanese, Korean players coming over because there's been some flops recently. But this isn't a flop. Like I watched this guy extensively the other day and was trying to find a reason not to like him, and I could not find a reason not to like him. The only reason in we're not talking about this, but in a first year player draft, and there I go again, I'm stuck again. First year player draft, I have him third on my listing, and it's only because of his age. Like if he was like maybe 3 or 4 years younger, I would consider him for the top spot in that. Mm-hmm. So I think you're, as Tim said, you're getting a ready-made starting pitcher who's going to produce right away. As for the other guy, I think he's low as well. I kind of see him as a top 200 guy, and it looks like he's more 250, 275 getting picked. So again, if everything works out, he should be top 150 guy. But even giving him some leeway, he's going to get on base a ton, and like Tim pointed out, he's going to score runs, and that's what we when you get multiple categories, it's always good to look for, especially after pick 200. So he's a great guy for that.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to mention real quick is that pitchers tend to translate much better than hitters. Okay, so I don't have any problems when it comes to bumping up the pitching component of things a little bit. Hitters are a little bit iffy, but we've seen an incredible level of success from pitchers coming out of Asia. So, like I said, right now I see him as being a very, very good bargain in redraft leagues.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. Let's go kind of position by position here. We'll go pitchers, infielders, outfielders. So let's stick with pitchers for now. And the guy that's going pretty close to Senga in ADP, about 15 or so spots higher, just inside the top 200 overall. That's Grayson Rodriguez in the Baltimore Orioles, a guy that I had a chance to see last year. Well, 2021 technically, which is not last year anymore. But he's still my number one pitching prospect overall. I love Rodriguez. I think he's a potential frontline guy and a guy that, maybe with a strong showing in spring could get an opening day spot in that rotation. I mean, look at the rotation. It's not great. Like Cole Irvin, maybe is their best arm right now who they just acquired. So I think he's going to be up early. I think, I hate to say like anybody, this year's Spencer Strider, because what Strider did last year was so phenomenal. And we can't expect, the Julio Rodriguez's, the Witts, the Striders every year. But if you're going to have any rookie, I think, making that massive impact, I think for me, it's going to be Rodriguez or maybe another name we'll get to here in a second. But Chris, what are your thoughts on Rodriguez? Do you think he's a guy that could dominate right out of the stretch?
I mean, there's a good chance. We're still kind of waiting for, make sure he's healthy, of course. They're saying that he is healthy and ready to go. But, not having as many innings last year and, with all the COVID stuff, I'm always a little skeptical about these rookies right now, especially rookie arms, because of the lack of innings pitched that they've had. So it looks like we lost Tim's photo too. So there's Tim. He's just playing with us.
I'm pretending to be Chris, okay?
Hey, I at least put a picture up when I noticed I was having this problem. But anyway, I really do believe that he has the potential to be good out of the start. And I like that you mentioned Strider, because Strider was kind of a different animal. And sometimes when we have a different animal like that, it helps push a guy up higher in rankings than you would normally find. We saw that with all those position players for the last few, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, where it seemed like every position player when he came up produced. And then we had the Jarrett Kelenic come up, and it didn't really work out the way that everybody wanted to, or even Gavin Lux. I mean, all of a sudden we started seeing some struggle initially. So right now I think his price is a little more inflated than I would want to take a chance on, but I think it's a sound investment.
Now, keeping it right there with the other name here that is some people's number one pitching prospect now, Andrew Painter. There's a lot of kind of rumblings that he might actually have a chance, crazy enough as it sounds, to win an opening day rotation spot or be up pretty soon. Do you see that, Chris? Do you think that is what it is, just rumblings, and you think he's going to be more of like a midseason call up?
Brent Hershey at Baseball HQ, he's our Phillies expert, and he's even given some credence to that. That there's a very good chance that they mean business with this. If you had a chance to see him, whether it was video or live last year, what really stood out was the quality stuff plus the command at such a young age, and his ability. He pitched innings last year. You look at a guy that was in Double-A all year last year, Yuri Perez. He didn't pitch innings. He got injured and stuff. Painter looks like a guy that is ready, and it's one of those things where you only have so many bullets. And if, we've seen other guys go down, the Casey Mize, with the injuries. We saw guys struggle this year with injuries like Daniel Espino and Yuri Perez and Grayson Rodriguez in the minor leagues. If a guy looks the part in spring training, bring him up.
Oh, I can totally see that. And it's funny because I was really excited to hopefully see Painter live in Double-A. early on this year. It's like, oh, you get up to AA into last year. I thought he'd still be there. Then all these kind of talks are coming out. I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to see him at this point. Maybe he goes right to AAA or even the major leagues. So I think we might see him early. Dombrowski has done this in the past, pushes his top young arms a little bit more than other executives might. So yeah, I think we could. And look at the ADP right now for Painter. It's basically double what Grayson Rodriguez's is, about 391. So right inside that 400. Tim, if you had to invest in either one of these two rookie arms this year, G-Rod around 200, Painter around 400, which would it be?
Andrew Painter for me, and it's a fairly easy decision based on team context. Hey, the Phillies are in it to win it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they're going to be afraid whatsoever to bring up a 20-year-old arm and use them if it makes a difference in achieving their overall goal, which is to get, which is to win the World Series. Baltimore, on the other hand, what's the motivation in Baltimore? A 500 season. They're a couple of, a year, maybe two away from looking at being serious World Series playoff contenders. So for me, the fact that Philly's all in makes a difference. And for that reason, I would want Painter before Rodriguez this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you, given the draft prices. If it was closer than 200 picks, I'd probably go Rodriguez. I'm still all in on Rodriguez. I'm all in on Painter as well. He's my number 2 pitching prospect. I think they're neck and neck. But given the fact that you can get Painter that offers similar upside for 200 picks later, maybe he's not up opening day, but it does sound, even if he's not, he's got to be up fairly early in the season, maybe looking at a May ETA or something like that. So that type of upside around 400 is something you just don't see that often. So I'd be willing to take a stab on him around that part. And I don't even hate the Rodriguez ADP either. I think that's a fair price and for the upside that he offers as well. And then you go about 50 picks later or so in the mid, 250, 260 range. Hunter Brown, a guy that I actually just took recently in a best ball draft that I'm currently doing. I love Hunter Brown a lot. I think he was always pretty underrated. We've seen the great, track record with Houston developing, especially pitchers over the last. Look at all the guys, the homegrowns. Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia, Lance McCullers. The list goes on and on here. So, do you think? I'll go over to you first, Tim. Do you think Hunter Brown gets enough innings this year? Because I'm kind of in the mindset like, hey, maybe he's in that Javier role from the beginning of 2022, where he's spot start here and there, multiple inning relief, innings here and there, and he can still get up to 120 innings or so. And I think if we get 120 plus innings out of a Hunter Brown this year with probably good ratios and over a strikeout per inning, pretty good 27-28% K rate. He was at 27.5% last year in this limited time. So I think if he gets 120 innings, I think he could justify that ADP and return a pretty solid ROI. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I like Hunter Brown. I like him a lot. And hey, let's face it, Houston is treating him the same way that they looked at Christian Javier. And Christian Javier turned out pretty fair. I remember so many of us complaining about the fact, give Javier the work, give him the innings. Well, they did last year, and it worked out just fine. So I don't see any problems. You're looking at Lance McCullers. How many starts is McCullers going to make? There's some questions around Jose Urquidy.
Yep.
I honestly think that Hunter Brown will have no problems at all achieving 110 to 125 innings pitched. I think they're going to be very good innings. I like Hunter Brown a lot, Eric.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? Do you like Hunter Brown this year?
Brown's going to get the innings. I mean, it's just what Tim said. There are too many question marks in that rotation. You ride McCullers as long as McCullers is healthy, obviously. It's not like other seasons with the Astros where there's that other guy just waiting in the wings right now to contribute as a starting pitcher. Brown's it. Brown's really that last that guy this year in AA, AAA. Or the major leagues. I don't expect anybody else to really jump into that position. So, he might start out in relief. Maybe it's a swing role to start out with. Maybe it's, a spot start. But I think by May, June, I think he's in the rotation for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. He has a lot of injury risk in the rotation, especially with Lance McCullers. When's the last time he got through a full season of 30+ starts? So yeah, I like Brown a lot. I think he's going to pitch at least 120 innings, maybe even 130, 140 this year. We'll see, but very talented arm for sure. Let's wrap up the pitchers here with the Arizona trio: Brendan Pfaadt, Dre Jameson, and Ryan Nelson. Quick plug for my good friend Chris Clegg, who writes here at Pitcher List. Wrote a great article about Brendan Pfaadt about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago or so. So I'd recommend going and check that out. I did a nice deep dive into Brendan Pfaadt here. Chris, Brendan Pfaadt is one of the more kind of fun. I think he's still very underrated. And if you read Chris's article, you'll see why. Do you think Brendan Pfaadt, A, can get a spot in that rotation out of spring training? And B, do you think he's a guy that could be an impactful fantasy arm this year?
I don't think he starts the year in the rotation. That's number one. I think he's more of a midseason call up. I think people are sleeping on him, and I didn't read Clegg's article, obviously, but I think people are sleeping on him because they see the counting stats from the minor leagues last year, and they don't necessarily look great. But what happened was he struggled early. If you look at any of the counting stats for any of the D-backs pitchers in AA and AAA, they look terrible.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
They're just. I mean, it's a horrible. They're both horrible situations for pitchers to come up in. And it's funny too because their Chase Field's not necessarily a terrible place to pitch. But like that's the thing is this is a 4-pitch arsenal. It's a very high spin rate 4-seam fastball. There's the ride in the arm side run that we're seeing, and especially it's coming from a lower slot. I'm making hand gestures here that nobody's seeing. That's why people get me for this stuff, and can't even show it off. And of course the slider's really good. 2-plane movement. It's especially good when it gets that late horizontal break. But I have him as somebody coming up midseason. As for those other two guys, I've always been a big Drew Jameson fan, and he looked really good to debut last year. I just have these question marks whether long-term he sticks as a starting pitcher, mostly because of the command issues. And I was very impressed with what I saw from Ryan Nelson. And I caution people when you see something out of a guy that maybe you've not seen before, and you see it in such a small sample to maybe take your gauge back a little bit on those type of guys. And I always thought Nelson was part of the upper echelon of the D-backs prospect pitchers, but to me, it's more of an SP4 type upside. It's not somebody that looked like an SP3 or SP2 this, in his short sample this year. So just be aware that sometimes these type of guys, the Ryan Nelsons, their value get inflated because of a debut like he had.
Yeah, very good point. Tim, what are any thoughts on the trio from Arizona?
I like all three of them, but I don't think when I look at the three of them, I think you're looking at the guy that interests me the most is Fed, and you're looking at second half numbers. I think when you start looking far enough down at their current ADPs, et cetera, yeah, you want to stash one on your reserve list. Yeah, that's fine, but I'm not going out of my way to acquire any of them early on this year.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. That's something I think people need to hear. All right, moving over to some hitters now. We got a lot of names on the list, so we'll try to keep it going here. Let's give a little love to some catchers. There's actually a quintet of fun names we have on our list here: Francisco Alvarez, Logan O'Hoppe, Bo Naylor, Gabriel Moreno, and Endy Rodriguez. For me, I love all these guys, first off. But for me, for this year, if I had to pick one to go after, I'm going after Logan O'Hoppe. Looks like Alvarez might get, a little bit of AAA time. I don't know. We'll see how spring training unfolds for him. But you've seen his ADP actually start to fall a good amount, about 50 to 100 picks in recent drafts. O'Hoppe, I think, is one of the more underrated prospects in all of baseball, regardless of position. The blend of contact ability, on-base ability, the approach is phenomenal. Good pop as well. I think he's going to be the biggest impact catcher that comes up this year. So he's one I've been targeting, in my 2 catcher drafts. I've been going after a Hoppy all day, but unfortunately everybody else has too. So don't have as many shares as I want to here. But Tim, out of these 5 catchers here, is there a name or two that sticks out for you this year?
Well, I think you're going to pay more for Alvarez. Okay, and I think what you're going to get from all 5, maybe excepting Ohapi, is I think you're going to get a solid number 2 type catcher. So my advice, I don't have any problems with any of those catchers as a number 2. Where I have problems is when people are overpaying in redraft leagues, anticipating number 1 type value, and I don't see that from any of this group of 5. Again, if you temper your expectations and look at them as a number 2 type catcher, I think it's fine, and I'm happy. I'd be happy to roster all of them. Again, a lot of it for me will be price. You start looking at Endy in Pittsburgh right now. I don't know if his ADP has reached the 600 mark, but again, the guy had a monster season last year, and for Pittsburgh, so I'd be perfectly fine with him as a number 2.
Yeah, we have a couple comments here. Catcher jackpot year, yeah, absolutely is a lot of fun. Young catching talents in the minor leagues that are about ready to debut or already have. Another one, Shea Langoliers. Yeah, he could be bumped. He's not a prospect anymore, but he could be bumped into this group as well. A guy that's going to get a lot of running out there in Oakland too. But Chris,
Gabriel Marino.
Yeah, now that he's out of Toronto, maybe some increased playing time out there in Arizona. That was a nice little deal for his value too. So yeah, a lot of fun catchers this year. Chris, I saw your face pop up again for a second, but now you're back to the Fenway picture here. We all know you got a nice beautiful face there. So hopefully you get that camera back soon. But
it comes down to me, I agree with you about Ohapi being underrated. I don't know if I feel like he's underrated. I feel like people are maybe in the redraft world he is, because people are realizing, they're a little skeptical because it's a name that they just kind of started hearing. But to be honest with you, this list of guys that you named out, Tim kind of hit it at the end of his little comment. I'm all over Gabriel Moreno. He's the only guy here that you can say has an elite offensive tool. He has it's a double plus hit tool. If it all plays out, and I don't see any reason for it not to play out. There is some, maybe he's not going to be the big on base percentage guy and stuff, but in a standard format, like I really do believe, he's going to do that. And out of the catching position, there are a lot of empty average guys. Give me the guy that is most likely to not be removed from the lineup because of an offensive slump. And hitters, they go in slumps, but great hitters, they find ways out of it. And that's what's so special about Moreno, is he is a great hitting catcher.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely he is. And I think there is the upside for at least some pop. Like he's showing some raw power, just game power hasn't been there last year or two. A lot of ground balls, but there's at least that hope that all right, maybe he can run into like 10, 12 home runs or something like that. That I don't think that's out of the realm possibility.
I'm throwing out. I think if he's playing getting starter reps, and when I say starter reps at catcher, 4 or 5 days a week, he hits 20 home runs.
This year?
Yes.
Hey, 20 home runs and a good average. Hey, take that all day from the catches. That's not a combination you get very often in this game. All right, moving over to some corner infielders here. Another 5 names that are very exciting. Tristan Casas, Josh Young, Miguel Vargas, Matt Mervis, and Brett Beatty. I think there's a common theme among these names here, at least for the last 3, is how much playing time they get. Obviously, the Dodgers are always loaded. They always a lot of names are trying to fit in there. The Cubs have, acquired Eric Hosmer and recently Trey Mancini, so we'll see how that works out for Matt Mervis. And Brett Beatty, there's a lot of guys there in New York too. Casas and Young, probably get starting nods here. Both of them are kind of going around. Young's going, I think a 225-ish range. Casas is kind of closer there. Mervis, and Beatty later on there. Tim, is there a name here you like more out of these 5 that you're targeting in redrafts this year?
Well, hasn't Boston? Aren't they looking at extending Cassis already, or is that just one of Cassis's
I've heard the
dreams?
rumblings. I've heard the rumblings. How much, if it's just smoke, I don't know. I would love to, maybe go the Atlanta Braves route and get, him locked up pretty early. I would love that. I think, I saw him a lot here in Double A. This is
Okay.
my home park, and I think he's gonna be a middle of the order thumper in short order with a great on base. So I love Cassis. I think if they give him the chance to just run with the job and work through the peaks and valleys of being a rookie and adjusting to major league pitchers full time, I think he's gonna be just fine. Maybe start of the year might not be too hot, but I think as we get going through the summer months here, I think he's gonna be a guy that really turns it on. So yeah, I'm very high on Tristan Casas.
Yeah, I share your thoughts to it. See, I have no problems. Actually, I'm attempting to acquire him as my corner infielder in as many leagues as I can.
Mhm.
Josh Young, he was supposed to arrive about a year ago, but it's been one injury after another injury after another injury. And I like the skills, I like the talent. We just got to see him stay healthy for a full year, and hopefully
Yep.
this is the year that it occurs. Again, I think you're looking at a little bit more risk based on his past history, but he's an exciting talent. In redraft leagues, again, a corner infield target. And again, let's just pray he can find a way to stay healthy, Eric.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That shoulder injury was definitely a big bummer that all of us. I thought he was gonna be up last year or early last year, not at the tail end of the season as he
Right.
was. And then the other big name here, obviously the probably the most hyped up name right now is Matt Mervis, whose ADP was really flying up. Then all these signings happened, so it's kind of been tempered a little bit lately. But Chris, Matt Mervis had a phenomenal year last year, over 40 home runs when you combine the minor leagues and what he did out in the Arizona Fall League. We got to see him hit a nice opposite field home run in the Fall Stars game. Is the hype justified with Matt Mervis? Do you see him being a guy that could be at least a solid corner infield option for fantasy teams this year?
Oh, I think he's totally overhyped.
Totally overhyped.
Totally overhyped.
Oh, okay.
I think that you see a guy that just pops up and does this sort of damage. I was more impressed what he did in Double A than what he did in the Fall League. Like, everybody's got to understand, like, Fall League performance is trash. Like, you go to that league and you see the worst pitching. Like, it's just absolutely trash. I think there's a reason why the Cubs got all of these players. I think there are holes in his game. So while I like him long term, I don't like him this year, especially with what has been acquired. A team knows their players better than anybody else. I also think that some of those walks they're inflated. I don't really believe that he's a guy that's going to be a high walk guy. I think he's a guy that's going to be more grip it or rip it. And so, like, I'm just not as high. I think the power's great. I just have some concerns with that approach, and that's really where I'm at now. You guys touched on Young. Young just didn't have the explosiveness after the shoulder injury, and that's always something that's hard to gauge when that comes back. Some guys, it never comes back. We saw Troy Gloss kind of basically disappear after a shoulder injury. Yes, much older guy, and I don't know why I threw Gloss out there of all guys, but I did. I'm getting barked at right now by my dog, so if you hear that, I apologize. If all things were equal, meaning playing time with these five guys, the guy that I would probably focus more on is Brett Beatty again. I'm going to go for the hit tool over power every day when it's a rookie debut. That's just kind of how I feel. So, and I think he has the best hit tool of that group. But obviously, we don't know if he's going to be playing third or if he's going to play left field. As a major leaguer, and we don't know where the bats are. I think he overtakes Escobar at third base for the Mets, but
I do too. Yeah.
I don't know. As a former Met fan, I guess I kind of am still a current Met fan. I have a weird relationship. I still am kind of gun shy, and I know it's a new owner, and I know it's a new front office, but their assistance to play guys through contracts is still something that hurts me. So I wonder if they go from Escobar to Beatty quick enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair assumption there, and I think your dog's a big Brett Beatty guy. I think that's what's I think that's why your dog's barking at you. I think very
Oh,
big Brett Beatty supporter.
or a big
think
Eduardo Escobar.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I think she hasn't gotten her treat, and that's why I'm getting barked at.
That's probably more realistic. But yeah,
Yeah.
Beatty. Every time I saw Beatty, 2021 Fall League, 2022 Double A, several times we played Binghamton a lot. He just kept line drive after line drive after line drive, hard hit ball after hard hit ball. I think he's gonna be, a good, good, not great average guy, 270, 275, something like that, with low 20s home runs once you get settled in. So yeah, I'm a big Brett Beatty guy as well, and all these guys are really. I like Cassis the most. I think out of this, and that's not just my Red Sox bias. I do just looking at it from a baseball perspective. I like Cassis the most here, and Vargas, if he can get the at bats out there, whether it's at third, left field, wherever it comes from. Vargas is a very good bat. All he's ever done is hit, and the power came along the last year or two. A little bit of speed as well, kind of 5'8" stolen base guy. So a lot of fun names here for corner infielders. Moving over to middle infielders, we got a lot of fun names here as well. I put Vaughn Grissom on, but he's technically not a prospect anymore, but just kind of wanted to throw his name in there as well. But we got Ezekiel Tovar from Colorado, a couple of Yankees, Oswald Peraza, Anthony Volpe, Royce Lewis from Minnesota, and Bryce Terang from the Milwaukee Brewers. Kind of a sneaky name that might get that second base spot out of spring training if he has a good spring, or he's at least in the running. Out of all these guys, I think the two most exciting for me for this year are Tovar and Peraza. Peraza I've tweeted about a lot over this the last couple of months here. The slow start, but really turned it on from middle of May on. And Tovar, I think, he looks like they're going to give him that job out there in Colorado. I know there's a stigma with Colorado prospects, and rightfully so, but Tovar, he's another one I saw in Double A, and I think he's legit. I think he's legit, like 15 to 18 homer guy, maybe 20-plus steals, high average type of guy, puts the ball in play. So Peraza and Tovar, I'm all over. Peraza's around 325 to 350 ADP. Tovar's a little higher. He's in that 250 range. So those are two, personally, I'm targeting in a lot of my drafts. Tim, how about you? Are you targeting those guys, or maybe a little Volpe and Lewis once they're back, and maybe May we see them, or I'm not sure. But who do you like out of these guys?
Well, things are pretty crowded in Minnesota right now, so I think they've got some things they've got to sort out first. But for me, Tovar definitely very, very intrigued, and Bryce Terang. You take a look. And Bryce Terang should be older than he is, isn't he? But it seems like we've been talking about him forever.
It does feel that way.
It looks like Milwaukee has opened the door for an opportunity for Terang. And he had a fairly big uptick in the power numbers last year. I think he got up to about 13, 14 home runs, somewhere in that range. I like Terang, assuming he's got the job. Now, maybe that's a big assumption, but right now he's penciled in. So of that group, probably in redraft leagues, Terang has my attention probably the most.
Yeah,
just for the you're looking, if he plays every day, there's no reason why he shouldn't steal 25 bases.
Yeah,
that counts.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I said, could get that second base job and run with it, because there's really no other great options. I think he has a very realistic chance to grab that spot. Chris, what are your thoughts on all these middle infield names here?
Well, Tim kind of took my answer. Terang's really the only guy that I would even target in a redraft league with, outside of guys out, maybe 350 or higher. I don't believe in Grissom right now. I just don't see it working in the infield, really. And I see him more as a utility guy that's getting starts, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. This year, I could see him starting out hot. I've just been, it could be my scouting bias. I saw a lot of Grissom over the last 2 years, being where I live geographically, and he never really wowed me. It was like a consistent good that, over time I was kind of like, all right, I can see it, but like there was nothing that really stood out about him that made me think this is a guy that even eventually I'm going to target in a fantasy league. I hope none of my keeper league people are paying attention to that because I do have him. Tovar, I believe he's a guy that's going to be up this year and up pretty early this year. I think what sets him apart with the other guys is his defensive abilities. I think that keeps you in the lineup, especially in a place like Colorado with such an enormous field to cover. Yeah. And then having that Colorado bias, that's being able to play half those games in Coors Field should help him offensively. And I agree with you, Eric. Like, your projection is pretty spot on for this year for him. Peraza, it all depends upon how pitchers are pitching to him, really. The guy has a very aggressive approach. Who knows when Volpe's going to be up? He's the best prospect of that group. There's questions whether he sticks at short. He might be a second baseman. But if he wants to play short, I mean, they're going to probably let him play short. And then, Royce Lewis is always that injury concern, unfortunately. It's just sad.
Can I bring up another name real quick, Eric?
Absolutely.
Romy Gonzalez. He is currently penciled in as a starting second baseman for your Chicago White Sox. And I know when you look at Vaughn Grissom, I understand the concerns there, but right now with Grissom and Romy Gonzalez, there's still a fairly solid middle infielder in Elvis Andrus who hasn't signed yet.
That's a good point.
Should Atlanta decide at some point in time, or the White Sox, Elvis Andrus is going to land somewhere, and he is going to shatter a few of our dreams when he does land, guaranteed.
Yeah, he can land. I can see him going to New York and kind of blocking Volpe and Peraza at least a little bit, throwing a monkey wrench into that whole scenario. But that's definitely a great point there as well. All right, moving over to some outfielders here, and we have some more Milwaukee Brewers on the list here. A lot of opportunities there in Milwaukee this year. So names we have on our list for outfielders: Jordan Walker, who's converting full-time to outfield. Some guy named Nolan Arenado kind of stands in his way there in St. Louis, so moving Walker to outfield. Esteury Ruiz, former Milwaukee prospect now with Oakland, but they still have a trio of outfield prospects on this list: Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick, Joey Weimer, and then I threw Will Brennan on as well because I thought he could be a sneaky play in Cleveland if he gets the playing time this year. But let's start with Jordan Walker. Chris, first, kind of a similar situation to some of these other names that we mentioned earlier. Is he up early enough to justify the top 300 ADP? I think he's going closer to 250 now. Obviously, all the tools in the world. I think he's gonna be long term. I think he's definitely gonna be a stud fantasy player overall, and a guy that could stand out offensively and add a little bit of speed. I think that's kind of a sneaky part of his game is that he can run a little bit too. But do you think he's up early enough to make a significant impact this year? There's a lot of bats out there in that St. Louis outfield already. So what are your thoughts on Jordan Walker for 2023?
I'm betting on the cream rising to the top, man. I think that he is the cream of that outfielder crop. Is he going to be a great outfielder? And we saw him make a great play, but that's some scouting bias. If we really believe he's that good in the outfield already. But I think that he has the tools to, the raw tools to certainly get over some of these humps that other guys would not be able to get over. Specifically, seeing the pitching really amp up will be, it's a challenge for almost everybody. Definitely a guy that if I'm going to target anybody of the top prospects, it's probably him, just because I feel like I can get him late enough that I can justify picking him. If he's at 250 right now, that's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there as well. Now, do you see out of this kind of Milwaukee cluster we have going on out there, do you see anybody kind of being able to stand out this year?
Sal Frelick, I think that's my choice of that threesome. I guess I don't know why I called it a threesome, but that trio of players. It's getting late, guys. I'm sorry, but he's again. I go with the hit tool, better hit tool than the other guys. Makes more contact. I don't trust Mitchell's swing. It's ugly. I think the real world scout and the fantasy scout are very divisive towards like you've got one that's saying that he is a dude, and then you've got the real world people going. And when I say real world, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about org scouts who are just super concerned about how that swing translates to the major leagues. So I've got Frelick. I think Weimer has a little more swing and miss than I would want in a major league lineup. Thinking that he's going to succeed. I know that you also put Will Brennan on that list. Will Brennan's like kind of my the few redraft leagues I play in. He is my guy late in drafts of any of the rookie offensive players that I'm picking. Just because I know where Oscar Gonzalez is getting drafted. I know where people are projecting him. I don't see Oscar Gonzalez being that guy. So I'm all over Brennan, getting the majority of playing time throughout the year in Cleveland.
Yeah, no, I am too. I think he had a nice little stint with Cleveland last year. It was small sample size, but I think he's a guy that could kind of fly under the radar and find some sneaky low end value for sure.
There's people in that organization that think that he's their top offensive prospect overall over George Valera and over Brian Rocchio. So and even Josh Naylor. So like there's some serious upside, but of course that's real world. Outfield play and base running instincts, those go into play in that sort of evaluation. So,
Yep.
But in fantasy, he might be, behind Naylor or something like that on their work list.
Yeah, but definitely a guy that could get some run this year in that Cleveland outfield. Tim, what are your thoughts on the Milwaukee situation? Brennan, I know you wanted to bring up another name, outfielder Oscar Colas as well in Chicago. Kind of, why don't you go run with it for a minute with all these outfielders?
Well, now that the Brewers have thinned their outfield prospects down by half, we've got something we can work with. Like, going back a month or so ago, Renfroe, Ruiz, add all this other three, and it was just a dog's breakfast. It's much more manageable now. I like Frelick, and I think he's going to have and own that job from May on. Okay, I don't believe in Mitchell. Looking at Chicago, it looks like right now the White Sox have got Colas penciled in to be an everyday player, breaking camp with the team. And, I followed him during the trials and tribulations in Japan. Believe me, there was a mess of trials and tribulations. And he missed 2 years, and he put up a 23.79 season last year, after being basically out of the game for 2 years. So there's a reason why the White Sox are high on him, and I am as well. I'll be trying to acquire him in redraft leagues and get him rostered in as many leagues as I possibly can, Chris.
Yeah, no, I like Colas as well.
Yeah. Can I just add this real quick? Like, of all the guys that I evaluated this offseason, I think he was the hardest of the guys that are closest to the major leagues, because like you did see some rust, in the minor leagues. I know that the slash lines didn't always say that, but it was almost like the same thing with Luis Robert when he had the long layoff and came back. I always hate to make comparisons of the same players and on the from the same organization type deal. But to be honest with you, like I watched him live and I've also watched him in person, and he's just not reacting well to spin. And that's where Robert was. And then all of a sudden he's in the major leagues and it doesn't look as ugly as it did in the minor leagues. So like I cautioned my readers on the spin recognition, but I also said like I could be totally wrong on this. And I if I hedged on anybody this whole offseason, it was Colas.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. A couple comments here. James Outman, Kyle Stowers. Yeah, they can get playing time. I like both of them at amount as well. And with Milwaukee, I've always loved Joey Wiemer. I had a chance to interview him. It was a great interview. Obviously, he's been a really fun prospect, but yeah, a lot of swing and miss. Though he did cut the K rate a lot in the last month of the season. Not sure why, but something to keep an eye on here. See if he gets.
It looked like he was kind of spitting at breaking pitches, like he wasn't confident in them.
Yeah.
So he wasn't swinging through as many breaking pitches. I wondered the same thing, and I just hit the videotape and watched a bunch of stuff, and that's what it seemed like he was doing. So I don't know if it's recognition or it's just like, hey, I'm seeing a different type of spin. I'm not going to swing at it. So I'm still like, I like him too. Like, and the hair is wonderful.
Oh, those, the long flowing blonde locks for sure.
Yeah.
All right, real quick here, as I'm sure Nick Pollock's gonna pop his face back in any second now. If there's the biggest mid-season call up that's going to have a big second half and have a huge impact, there's one name for you, Tim. Who would that be?
Kyle Harrison.
Kyle Harrison. I like it. I saw Harrison this year, AA. Great stuff. Especially the secondaries, slider changeup, very good. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
And the Giants basically committed. They have said we're going to see him pitching in the bigs this year. So I like Kyle Harrison a lot in the second half.
He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Robbie Ray type. Maybe the whip will be a little bit higher with Harrison, but great stuff. Can strike out a ton of guys. So yeah, I like that a lot. Chris, how about you?
I don't like Tim right now because that's who I was going to go with. So.
Okay,
now I'm scrambling.
I'm
scrambling now, like going. Eric had on our little outline has a few names. I was like, I don't know. But of the guys that you had, Eli De La Cruz is probably the guy that I think could have a big impact this year. Coming up mid-season, I think that there's, just like Colas, but for different reason. There's some pitch recognition issues that he's going to have to solve. But like he's, we kept on talking about this with Michael Harris while he was coming through the minors. He didn't look the prettiest at times, and then all of a sudden kind of put it all together and stuff. Guys that don't fail, even though they have these issues, are guys that you should be a little more bullish on. He hasn't shown a weakness yet, even though he swung and missed like 50% of the breaking pitches he swung at in AA. It didn't matter. So like that's kind of where I'm at on a potential breakout midseason. It could be De La Cruz.
Man, if he, given what he did this past year with the huge power speed numbers, if he's doing that again in the upper minors when he gets the call, let's just say it's like June, July, man, the fab spent on him is going to be astronomical, and he could just keep that momentum going and be a huge impact from the get-go, or he's got to, obviously it could, follow a little bit given the, the swing and miss that he has. So that should be a fun kind of call up and debut there. But there he is.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I just want to let you go as long as you could. That was fantastic. Oh, turn on the camera for me. Look at that, Chris.
But see, I'm stuck. Like my face is stuck like
it
that.
Looks good though. Yeah. You dressed up, open collar. Love it.
Should have left it with the pajamas, Chris.
I should have.
And Tim, I gotta say, I didn't say before, I absolutely love the beard. I think it's phenomenal.
Thanks, Nick.
And Chris, Eric, this is what you have to aspire to, is what you see below you.
Yeah,
just so
gotta let it grow out a little bit more before first pitch Florida next month.
Yeah, it's probably like just a year away, right, Eric?
That length, yeah, that maybe 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe two, Eric, just to be on the
No, I'm
safe
saying
side.
the color too, Eric. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. I'm messing all around. Anyway,
Shots
guys,
fired.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Helpful for me.
Thank you, Nick.
Because I know nothing about prospects. And I guess I'm not going to go after Matt Mervis. So thanks a lot for that, Chris. Very much noted.
You're welcome.
It's all here. But really, thank you guys so much for being part of PitchCon. It really, panels like these really just help give the whole broad topic of just all baseball fans. Come on in. We got this. So Eric, Tim, Chris, thank you guys so much. And really quickly, just plug what you're doing. We'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. This is a great event every year. Love being a part of it for a good cause as well. You can find me on Twitter at EricRoss04, right over at Fantrax HQ, FTN, and over on my Patreon as well, and do the Toolshed podcast with pitcher list writer Chris Clegg. So a lot of fun stuff going on this time of year. Redraft, Dynasty, the whole shebang.
There you go. Beautiful. Tim.
Yeah, you can find me at Prospect 361 Patton and Company and Prospect 365 Facebook page. I'm here, there, and sort of everywhere. And again, I want to thank you very much, Nick, for the opportunity to spend an hour with these fine gentlemen going over these
course.
prospects. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was great having you. And Chris.
Nick, thank you for having me. As usual, this is a beautiful thing that you do every year. And I encourage everybody to donate to this great cause. I'm over at Baseball HQ. I'm director of prospect analysis there. I do a podcast called The Eyes Have It. Sometimes now co-host with Brent Hershey, sometimes all by myself. And just want to invite anybody who's interested in First Pitch Florida. Eric gave a little bit of a cue there for that.
There.
Come on there. It's the first weekend of March. I may or may not be there, but a lot of great people are scheduled to be there, including a few people here, right?
Yep, I'll be there.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. I'm hopefully I might be giving a presentation. We'll see.
Ooh,
You will.
We'll see.
You will.
If Brent will let me, I'll be giving a presentation. But yeah,
Brent
come on
will.
by. We'll love to be, love to meet all of you guys. So please, it was super fun when we did it before. Yeah, come down to that. But yeah.